I want to tell you about a dinner conversation I had last year. It was a Saturday evening, 6 of us around a table, all professionals, all in our late 30s and 40s, all earning what most people would genuinely describe as good money. Combined household incomes at that table were well over $500,000. And at some point in the evening, after the second glass of wine and the kind of comfort that comes from being around people you trust, someone said something that changed the entire energy of the room. She said, and I am going to quote her almost exactly because it stayed with me, "Sometimes I feel like no matter how much we earn, we are always just barely keeping up, like we're running on a treadmill that keeps getting faster." The table went quiet for a second, and then everyone started nodding. Not politely, not performatively, the kind of nodding that happens when someone names something you have been carrying privately and suddenly realize you were not carrying alone. 6 people, solid careers, real incomes, all feeling the same thing. Not broke, not in crisis, but not financially free either. Somewhere in between and unable to quite explain why. There is a name for what that table was experiencing. Researchers at MoneyWise recently described it as belonging to the conflicted middle, a category that a survey from Edward Jones and Gallup found captures 51% of U.S. adults. Caught between stability and uncertainty, earning a decent income but still feeling financially stretched. This video is about why that happens, why middle-class families with good incomes, families who are doing everything right on paper, never quite feel rich, and more importantly, what the specific structural reasons are that keep that feeling in place year after year. Because understanding the why is the only path to actually changing it. Before I go into the reasons, I want to say something directly. The feeling that my dinner companions described, the treadmill feeling, the "why isn't this enough" feeling, is not a personal failing. It is not a sign of bad financial decisions or weak character or poor priorities. It is a documented, researched, named phenomenon that affects the majority of American middle-class households. Wendy Molineux, a certified financial education instructor and author of Financial Trauma, Why Money Isn't Just About Money, gave it a name in a recent interview with MoneyWise. She called it ambient financial strain, a constant background pressure that develops when the economy moves faster than household budgets can adapt. Many middle-class families are caught in a confusing position. Even households that are earning decent incomes often feel as though they're running just to stay in place. The ACLI Financial Resilience Index, which measures middle-class households earning between $50,000 and $150,000 annually, found in its January 2026 report that more than half, 55% of middle-class households, are at least somewhat concerned about a serious decline in their financial situation, and almost half, 46%, are not confident they will build sufficient retirement savings. These are not people in poverty. These are people earning solidly, paying their bills, doing what they are supposed to do, and still feeling financially fragile. The question is, why? The first reason is structural, and it is important to understand before anything else. The cost of living a middle-class life in America in 2026 is dramatically higher than it was even 5 years ago, and the increases have been concentrated in exactly the categories that middle-class families cannot easily cut. Food at home prices have risen roughly 28% since the end of 2019, according to federal inflation data. That's not restaurant spending or discretionary food choices. That's groceries, the baseline. The average new car hit a record $49,814 in November 2025, according to Kelley Blue Book. The typical new car loan in the third quarter of 2025 was $42,333, with an average monthly payment of $748 and an average loan term of 69 months. Americans collectively carry $1.66 trillion in auto loan debt, more than outstanding student loans combined. Housing costs have risen in most major markets to the point where even the ACLI Financial Resilience Index specifically identified housing inflation as a primary driver of middle-class financial pressure. And here's the insight that ties all of this together. The things that have gotten most expensive, housing, food, transportation, healthcare, are the things that cannot be easily reduced without a significant lifestyle change. They are not luxuries, they are the infrastructure of daily life. When the infrastructure costs more but the income grows at a slower pace, the gap between earning and feeling financially secure widens, even when the income number on paper looks comfortable. Here's the second reason, and this one is harder to hear because it involves something we do to ourselves, often without realizing it. Every raise I have ever received in my career was followed within months by an increase in spending that absorbed most of or all of the increase. Not because I sat down and decided to spend more, the spending just happened. The apartment got a little nicer when the next lease came up, the car got newer, the vacations got further, the restaurants improved, and somehow by the time the next performance review arrived, the income that had felt like breathing room when it was announced now felt like exactly enough and nothing more. Economists call this phenomenon lifestyle inflation. The Fortune article on the middle class, published in April 2026, described it this way: the American middle class has grown so wealthy so fast that it has lost the ability to recognize its own prosperity, and the media environment has systematically replaced old grounded benchmarks of success with new, more expensive ones. What that means in practical terms is this: the reference point for what counts as a normal, appropriate, deserved lifestyle has been moving upward consistently, driven by social comparison, by advertising, by the curated visibility of other people's financial decisions on social media, while actual wealth accumulation, the actual real financial security number, has barely moved at tangible levels. The income grew, the lifestyle grew with it. The net worth, the actual real financial security number, barely moved. Here's the third reason, and I need to spend real time on this one because I think it's one of the least discussed drivers of the middle-class wealth gap. Most middle-class households don't think about major financial decisions in terms of total cost. They think about them in terms of monthly payments. Can I afford the payment? That's the question being asked at the car dealership, at the furniture store, at the vacation booking website, at the home improvement contractor's office. And the answer to "can I afford the payment" is almost always yes. A $748 monthly car payment on a $75,000 salary is tight but manageable. A $2,400 mortgage is tight but manageable. The subscriptions at $220 per month are individually small. The credit card minimum at $150 per month is manageable. What is not being asked is the total cost question, and the total cost is where the wealth destruction actually lives. The average American family earning $75,000 annually with a car payment, a mortgage, credit card minimums, and subscription services is committing somewhere between 65% and 80% of their take-home pay to fixed monthly obligations before a single discretionary decision is made. What remains, 20 to 35% of take-home pay, has to cover food, gas, utilities, clothing, healthcare copays, children's activities, and anything resembling savings. In most cases, it cannot cover all of that. Something gives, and what almost always gives is the savings. The monthly payment mentality turns financial life into a treadmill. Every payment that feels manageable individually is part of a system that leaves almost no room for wealth building, and the system renews itself every time a new payment is added: a new car, a new appliance, a new subscription, replacing the feeling of stability with a new obligation that consumes the same space the previous one occupied. Fortune's April 2026 analysis made a point that I found genuinely illuminating. It noted that as the upper middle class has grown in size, it has flooded the markets for housing, elite education, premium travel, and luxury amenities, inflating prices at those levels and simultaneously raising the visible standard of what success looks like. In plainer language, the people you are comparing yourself to have more money than the people your parents compared themselves to at your age, and the things you feel you should be able to afford, because people around you have them, cost more than they did for the previous generation. The Brookings Institution's December 2015 research found that the share of middle-class households that do not earn enough to afford basic necessities where they live ranges from 23% to 57% depending on the metro area. not luxury, basic necessities, and the Brookings made the exact point that crystallizes why the feeling never goes away. A household defined by income as middle class may not feel they are middle class as they struggle to make ends meet. The label says middle class, the experience says something else, and the gap between the label and the experience is not a motivation problem, it's a structural one. Reason 5. Retirement is being funded last, if at all. This is the one that quietly costs the most. When the monthly obligations consume most of the income and the social comparison pressure consumes most of the discretionary spending, what gets funded last, or often not at all, is retirement. The ACLI found that 46% of middle-class households are not confident they will build sufficient retirement savings. That's not a future problem, that's a present-tense one, compounding daily. Here's what that looks like in numbers. A 40-year-old who starts contributing $300 per month to a retirement account and earns a 10% average annual return will have approximately $196,000 at 65. From the same $300 at the same return. The difference, $482,000, is the compound interest cost of the monthly payment mentality applied to retirement savings. That is not a small rounding error. That is the difference between retirement as freedom and retirement as anxiety. What I changed at my own kitchen table. I want to be direct about what I personally did when I understood these 5 dynamics clearly for the first time. I stopped asking, can I afford the payment, and started asking, what is this costing me in future wealth? Those are not the same question. They are not even close to the same question. I did a payment audit. I listed every single fixed monthly obligation, every subscription, every loan payment, every recurring charge, and added them up. The annual total of your fixed monthly obligations is probably larger than you think it is. The second is to identify one payment that ends or could be eliminated early in the next 12 months, a car loan, a personal loan, a credit card balance. When that payment ends, do not let the money disappear into spending. Have a plan right now for exactly where it will go the month it is freed. The third is to reframe one upcoming financial decision. Whatever the next significant purchase decision is in your life, ask the full cost question rather than the payment question. Not, can I afford the monthly payment? What does this cost me over 5 years? And what else could that money have become? The treadmill feeling is real, but the treadmill has an off switch. You just have to know where to find it. We'll see you in the next one.